We're at chapter 3 on ethnography. We're going to take a look at how anthropologists study culture. There's several things that we're concerned with in this chapter. What distinguishes ethnographic fieldwork from other types of social research? How do anthropologists actually do ethnographic fieldwork? What other methods do cultural anthropologists use? And what unique ethical dilemmas do ethnographers face? If you look at this slide, the image on the slide, ethnographic methods have been used to study the lives of many distinct societies and communities, including the lives of residents of East Harlem, New York, such as those pictured here, who are playing dominoes on the sidewalk. You'll find anthropologists almost everywhere studying people and their behavior. For this chapter, our learning objectives, we've already talked about, we're considering the question, how do anthropologists learn about other ways of life? And by the time we've finished, you should be able to answer this question and to describe the various fieldwork methods anthropologists have used to study their own societies, distinguish between the comparative method, the genealogical method, life histories, and the various applied methods, clarify what is meant by the native's point of view and cultural tunnel vision, and understand the ethical challenges involved in ethnographic fieldwork. So when we think about other types of research and things that go on with other disciplines, we want to talk about for a moment what distinguishes ethnographic fieldwork from those other methods. As we shared in the opening of the class, that we take a holistic approach in anthropology. We look at all of the aspects of social life simultaneously. And also, what anthropologists engage in when they engage in field work, it's a long-term commitment. It's at least a year, and many times it's more. And anthropologists approach the study with an open mind. And we talked about cultural relativism earlier as well. And that, again, is the idea that we use and take the opportunity to take each culture at its face value and the practices and things that are part of it. Cultural anthropology is the most qualitative of the social sciences. So what is field work? And this, again, is the defining method of cultural anthropology. Field work is that which allows insights that wouldn't be possible if we just dropped in on a place or did surveys or brief interviews. Field work is really digging in and being a part of a culture, being part of a community for a while. And as anthropologists do that, it helps people to understand things about themselves that they might not be aware of. If you recall last week in the discussion about culture, and I asked you to describe various things, how you learn things, and very often we don't take into consideration how we learn things, how we discover things, why we do certain things. And field work and its inquiry helps to bring about a new perspective and very often new understanding of things. Anthropologists work to see the world from the native's point of view. And by living with the population for a long period of time, the anthropologists can really get a flavor, a feel for what's happening in a community. And when they first enter into the field, they're coming with an edict perspective, as we talked about. That's the outsider's perspective. But over time, as they become trusted by the community, allowed into various aspects of the community, become in many ways trusted, then anthropologists develop an emic or insider's perspective once that takes place. But it's also important that anthropologists avoid tunnel vision. And tunnel vision refers to the unquestioned tacit meanings and perspectives drawn from our own culture that prevent us from seeing and thinking in terms of another culture's tacit meanings and perspectives. What can happen if an anthropologist is not aware of their tunnel vision, they can find themselves caught up in ethnocentrism. We do know that everybody has ethnocentric tendencies, but anthropologists worked hard to not impose those things on the cultures that they study, to work hard to be aware of that. And as they encounter cultures, informants, and those are the people that are part of a culture that an anthropologist relies on to help provide information and help them to understand a group. Often they feel that their way of doing things, their moral and ethical and legal codes, and their ways of thinking are correct, and everyone else is flawed. And so even the culture that's being studied can be ethnocentric in its way. And so anthropologists work to find and discover and unravel the cultural logic, local cultural logic. So how is it that anthropologists actually do ethnographic field work? And there are several methods that anthropologists engage in. We talked about that field work, it incorporates and it integrates holism, cultural relativism, and ethical behavior. And there's several number of techniques that we're going to talk about that anthropologists use in field work and engage in to help them to understand and to gain a deeper insight of culture. The first is participant observation. Anthropologists also conduct interviews. They also engage in scribbling. And so now we're going to take a look at those particular methods that anthropologists use. Participant observation is sometimes referred to as discipline hanging out. That's when the anthropologist is what we call a professional stranger, where they take the opportunity to get to know the culture, to get to know the people that they are studying, the people that they are spending time with, and they become, as much as possible, a part of that particular culture. They do what it is that they can to understand the customs and practices and things of a local culture. And there are many ways in which anthropologists do this, but establishing rapport is an important part of this. And when they enter into the field, one of the first things that they are looking is to develop rapport with the people that they're studying. In this picture here, you can see one of the authors of your text, Robert Welsh, in Indonesia. And one of the things that is happening is that Welsh is wearing some of the clothing of the people he studied, again, to help to develop rapport and a connection. Anthropologists also engage in interviews. There are several kinds of interviews in which they might engage. One are those that are highly structured, they're formal, they're scripted, and then there are unstructured interviews that are open-ended and sort of free form. They follow different ways of having conversations and inquiring with the people that they are studying. Scribbling is actually a term that's used to refer to an anthropologist taking field notes. There has to be some way for the anthropologists to record their information, and very often it's in the form of field notes. And field notes are really, really important. They're details that can be forgotten after months and years have passed. So anthropologists go to painstaking effort to make sure that they're taking field notes, that they're recording their impressions and recording things that are happening and all of that. And there's something also that are called head notes, and that's when anthropologists kind of step away for a moment and they talk about the kinds of personal things that they're experiencing, their thoughts, and their feelings about things. Anthropologists can very oftentimes feel isolated because they may be away from their family and the culture that they're used to, and there's new customs, new language, new foods, many other things that can be a bit disconcerting and a bit disorienting. And head notes help to is a way of an anthropologist journaling in such a way that they can kind of get these things out to help them cope with what's taking place. So there are other methods that anthropologists use, and we are going to cover these. We can see here the comparative method, the genealogical method, life history, ethnohistory, rapid appraisals, action research, anthropology at a distance, and analyzing secondary materials. We're going to cover this in the next unit.